Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Wars. It is August 5th, 1996, and we are live, as always, with 2 hours, that's on point 3, of WCW Nitro from the MGM studio at Disney World, Orlando, Florida. We love this venue. I love bringing it to you along with my compatriot, co-host, and all-around great guy, Joseph Rojas. Would you like the emphasis on your name there? It was a lot of emphasis.
I don't know much, but I know I love you.
Oh my God.
That's all I got.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. But not as beautiful as this venue.
This is a great venue. We have some fun venues in the next few weeks, but one of them you won't know about unless you subscribe to our Patreon, $2 a month.
Are you talking about Hog Wild?
I am talking about Hog Wild, the formerly known as Hog Wild.
Yeah, the trademark infringement Hog Wild. But we like it. We like the venue. It's fun. You gotta subscribe to the Patreon to know more about that, Joseph. So I'm not gonna say anymore. I'm not gonna say another damn thing about it. I will say something else, though, about the MGM studio, which you and I know and love. I was reading my Nitro book on the plane to Houston to see my boy, Joseph Rojas. We were together live in Houston. Very exciting. And we didn't record anything. We should have recorded something.
I know, right? It seems like some missed opportunity now.
But I was reading the book. What the author is, Guy Evans? Is that right? Or am I
Correct.
completely
Yes.
making that
No,
book? Guy Evans Nitro book. Good book if anyone wants to read it. It's all about the Monday Night Wars, but from the Nitro perspective and how it just soared and then crashed into the ground. But I was reading, I got to the part about where we are right now with the MGM studios, and apparently this was just kind of done out of necessity because the Olympics are going on. Ironically, the Olympics are going on right now, but this was the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta, and the Turner Broadcasting Company was like completely focused on the Olympics. Everybody was doing the Olympics. It was in their hometown of Atlanta. So they just didn't have the, some of their crew was pilfered to do Olympics and all that kind of stuff. They just didn't have the manpower to be doing road shows and filming it and all that kind of stuff. So they went to Disneyland or Disney World, and we love it. So it all worked out for me. But speaking of Disneyland, Disneyland is kind of known for having good security, Joseph. I mean, they like to have their own police force. I've heard they've got like a jail, at least at Disneyland, they've got like a jail underground. If you mess up, man, you go into Mickey and Friends jail. But their security seems kind of poor.
Maybe the security got pulled for the Olympics too.
That could be because Rey Mysterio Jr. got murdered last week. He is dead. We will never see him again. He is dead. And so the wrestlers, the WCW wrestlers have noted this too. They're like, man, this is bad. So they've taken matters into their own hands. We've got WCW security. We got their own security. I like it. What do you think about this?
I love it. I think it's a great touch. It's all the wrestlers like lining the rings and the entrance and all that. It's a really cool thing. It's kind of, an act of unity because you have different people, right, from different factions, kind of regardless. Like there is a moment on the night where there's, Horsemen and Dungeon of Doom who've been warring for quite a few months now, and they're guarding the ring. They're making sure no one gets in case the NWO decides they want to show up. It's just really cool, right? It kind of hammers home the attack that we had a week ago, right? It hammers home like how brutal that was because it wasn't just on Ray. They killed Arn, they killed Marcus Bagwell, all dead, never gonna see him again.
Rest in peace, bros. Rest in peace. Bless up.
Pour one out for our fallen homies. And it's just a really, really nice touch. And it's a simple one, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to cut a promo. You don't have to really do anything other than go stand out there looking like you're, menacing. And we're just going to film it real quick and then continue with our matches. And it costs nothing to do. It's such a great use of talent you already have, and some of which aren't even going to wrestle tonight. So might as well use them. And it's just really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's just a completely low budget, like almost free, beyond the guy's salaries that you're already paying anyways, but it's like free heat to just show how serious of a threat the NWO are. Where the entire locker room, guys who hate each other, whatever, warring factions, they've cleared out and they're at the ring to provide security because of how bad the NWO is and how bad what they did last week was. I agree with you. It's great. What isn't great is that we got a tag team match, which I love, and it's got Harlem Heat, who I love, and it's got Rock and Roll Express, who I also love. I think they're great. I mean, they're a great classic tag team. But we got Sister Sherry and Colonel Robert Parker, and we're doing this again. Joseph, why don't you tell me about the match and then how uncomfortable this all makes me?
I mean, it's not much of a match, right? I mean, most of it is just being distracted by Sister Sherry and Colonel Robert Parker and their kind of antics, their kind of "we're in love" thing, which it's from a story standpoint makes no sense at this point. And it doesn't do any it's not actually adding to the match, which is really, frustrating. It's really more distracting from the match. You spend most of the camera time watching them instead of what's going on in the ring. The Harlem Heat win a very less than stellar match through nefarious deeds, and interestingly enough, the crowd actually cheers Harlem Heat, which I thought was very strange. I didn't hate this, I didn't love it, I gave it a C minus. I thought that if it wasn't for Sister Sherry and Robert Parker, and you know very well that I love Sensational Sherry, just don't love what they're dealing with her here. And I think Robert Parker can work, just not in this format. Outside of them, everything else is kind of okay. It's a weird way to start your show, though.
Well, and that's the real problem because everybody in this, I think, is great. I even think Colonel Robert Parker, we've had some good Colonel Robert Parker. He does good work, but the angle is terrible. I hate this angle. I think some of it is 2020 hindsight and that we kind of know the issues that Sister Sherry's going through. And so that kind of makes it even more uncomfortable. But I also it's just a weird love angle that I thought we already settled because Robert Parker was cheating on Sister Sherry with Medusa. And then they had a blow off match. They had a couple of blow off matches. Well, I guess one was just kind of an in-ring scrum between Medusa and Sherry, and then Medusa wrestles Colonel Robert Parker. It's blown off. It's over. We're done. Why are we bringing this back? And why are we bringing this back now when we have one of the hottest things going? We don't need this. We do not need this. Let us move on because this breaks my heart. We got Mean Gene, and he is interviewing the Nasty Boys. I'm trying something new.
I don't know why you did that. That made no sense.
I'm trying something new. Go with I'm trying something new.
All right, yeah. Good to see you.
But I liked this interview with the Nasty Boys because Mean Gene, we've been doing this for a couple weeks now where Mean Gene's asking the locker room, how do you feel about Hulk Hogan turning? Like it's terrible, right? Nasty Boys say, no, I don't think it's that bad. I think this is the first time too where they admit or they acknowledge that the Nasty Boys are actually friends with Hulk Hogan on a personal level. Mean Gene brings that up, and they just say, Hulk Hogan can do what he wants. He's a free man. He's his own person. He can do whatever. We don't care. It's kind of suspicious. So suspicious that I combined Lex Luger and Sting together into Ling, which, by the way, should be their tag team name. Sting and Lex Luger come out, and they want to know a little bit more about this idea that Hulk Hogan can do whatever he wants. I thought you guys were Team WCW. Nasty Boys say, bro, it's none of your business what we think. Damn! What do you think about this, Joseph?
I thoroughly enjoy this. You're a little bit wrong. It is not the first time they've mentioned this. They've actually had the day after Bash at the Beach, that Nasty Boys were one of the teams that was interviewed, specifically Brian Knobbs, because him and Hogan are such great friends. And he kind of said the same thing at that time. And Mean Gene was still so emotional about it that he pulled the mic away from him. This works really well, though, right? This continues this idea of who could be the fourth member. We're going to see more of that a little bit later on. And, is it someone that he's close with? There's going to be a really fun moment in Hog Wild that falls under those lines too. And it kind of works for the Nasty Boys character, right? The Nasty Boys are finally getting TV time that I think is relevant. You know, we've been pretty down on them, but it's mostly been because they've been tagging against Public Enemy doing the same match over and over for, you know, a millennium. This it really works. This is taking the reality of their friendship and kind of, you know, putting it on its head. And it just, I gave this an A. I thought it was really, really well done. I like what everybody did. I also love that Sting is in Lakers home gold colors. So that gets an A by itself. It's just a really nice segment. And it continues the paranoia. And that paranoia is really, we talked about even before the NWO, them trying little paranoia angles and them all being really good, but never quite getting to their apex, and they're starting to figure that out, like how to meld those previous angles into this new NWO angle, and it really stands out.
Sting, big lake show guy, as we know, born in Omaha, Nebraska. Big lake show guy. Anyways, I have a bone to pick with you, Joseph. And my bone is this. Why do you keep stealing firsts from me? Prince Iakea? Now this? Just let me have it. You
You
know?
know what?
Just
You're absolutely right, Scott. It was the very first time it ever happened.
no, but I'm kidding because you're right to correct the record because we run a factual program here. Although I think we've said a number of things that aren't true and we had to correct in hindsight. But
But we at least correct them, and instead of being like
we
other
try
people and being like, "No, they're we're right, we're right." It's like, "No, dude, we're
because we
gonna be
really
wrong
are.
sometimes." Yeah.
We're trying to give you the facts. Some of this stuff we're just pulling from memory. So forgive us if we get a name wrong or a date wrong or those sorts of things. We'll correct if we realize it. If you think we said something that's wrong that should be corrected on the record, email us. We got an email. It's on the Patreon and Spotify and all that information. So email us if we get something wrong. We want to correct the record. We want to be right about this. We want to give you the full scope of events so you don't have to watch it because, you know, Raw isn't very good most of the time. So don't watch it. But Joseph, I want to move on to another important first. The first Glacier promo we've ever seen.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
It's no. When you were talking, you talked about the Nasty Boys having the same match for a millennium, and I was like, yeah, just like Glacier promos. I was thinking that was the angle I was going to work, but then I decided I was going to run with the first thing. Blood runs cold, Joseph, for the first 800th time. He's doing the karate moves again. We're seeing more of Glacier now. I think they've realized that this is going way too long, and they need to spice it up. They need to get us hyped, and it's still not coming. Only thing that would make me feel better, Joseph, is buying some Hog Wild merch. And thank God, WCW got some Hog Wild merch. Denim jacket, Joseph, $100. You buying the denim jacket for $100?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, but it's hot. Have you seen? It's hot, man.
I'm not a denim jacket guy.
I mean, you a denim jacket guy for a Hog Wild denim jacket.
Nah, I
I'm
think
gonna
I'm
Google
good.
it if I can find one.
You
better
probably
watch
can.
yourself.
You
Yeah, you better watch
probably
yourself.
can.
Your birthday's coming up, bro. Well, if all else fails, you can get a Hog Wild t-shirt. They got those too. Not as cool. You're going to regret it. You're going to biggest mistake of your life not getting the denim jacket. That's all I'm saying. After that, though, Joseph, after that, we got another ladies match. We are getting women's matches on Nitro. I never thought I'd see the day. We got Medusa, and then I'm going to botch it, Joseph, so you can correct me. Malia Hosaka.
That is correct.
Damn, I'm good. Go, Joseph.
This is a fun match. Of course, it's a women's match, so it doesn't get very much time like normal. Tony Schiavone says that Medusa is on a tremendous win streak. When? When did that happen? The one win she got like 2 weeks ago? I looked it up. She beat Debbie Combs a month ago on Saturday night. I don't think 2 wins consists as a win streak. And she loses this one, so she definitely doesn't have a win streak. Hosaka, by the way, is Hawaiian, not Japanese like they say she is. I heard her tell a fan to shut up and wait, that English is really, really good. Let me look it up. And sure enough, she is not Japanese, which made me laugh. It's the Yokozuna thing, obviously, but it is what it is. Hosaka wins because Sonny Ono cheats, that son of a bitch. And it's a very decent match, but it's a women's match, so they just don't give it any time, and it's really quick. So I gave it a C+. I'm going to start grading these women's matches on kind of a curve because they just don't give them enough time to really do anything. So they're never going to get into that gear, so you can kind of only give them a grade based off of what you're seeing. which I don't think is fair to them. It wasn't their fault. It was, it's not that they're not capable. They absolutely are capable. And there's actually one coming up that I really enjoyed, and then they just killed it because of time. And I was like, come on, man. But anyways, got a C plus for me. I enjoyed the match. This is building towards the Hog Wild match between Medusa and another Japanese wrestler. This one actually is Japanese, in Bull Nakano, and the kind of weird motorcycle versus motorcycle match. They don't really call it that, but that's kind of what they're doing. And yeah, so they're just kind of doing this whole, like, she's going up against Japanese wrestlers, in this case Hawaiian, and getting ready for that, which does work actually, because Medusa wrestled for a long time in Japan and a lot against Bull Nakano. So you're going to see some fun matches with them.
Yeah, you mentioned the time. So this was a 4-minute, 39-second match. By comparison, the Harlem Heat Rock and Roll Express match that preceded this one, 8 minutes, 25 seconds. So just a difference. And I think there's two matches. There's two matches that are less time than this match. But once you hear who they are, you'll understand why. But yeah, the ladies' matches don't get a lot of time, but Medusa's great. And it's, when the female Japanese wrestlers they bring in to wrestle against her are great, iconic. Bull Nakano, like one of the greatest female wrestlers of all time, along with Medusa. So that's a good match for Hog Wild. Very excited. Let me check the time on that, because I got the time. Let's see how long that match is. 5 minutes. So we get like 20 seconds more.
Yep.
Hog Wild. So tune in. Speaking of tuning in, WCW Saturday Night promo, man. 6:05 Eastern on the Superstation. They're gonna be live from Hog Wild. I kind of like that. That's cool. That's kind of it's a taste. It's a free taste of what you're gonna get at Hog Wild down at Sturgis. John Tenta's gonna be battling Big Bubba. They're still doing that apparently. Although I don't hate it, because I love John Tenta, so I'm fine with that. So we'll see. And Arn Anderson's gonna be there. He's alive. He lived. Rey Mysterio's still dead, but he's alive now. And then Ric Flair. We get a little bit of Ric Flair, whom I love. I tell you, I'm excited to talk about Ric Flair, Hog Wild. He gets the Academy Award. I love it. You're gonna have to tune in. Sign up to the Patreon. I'm selling it hard, man, because I actually really liked Hog Wild, even though everyone else hates it. After that, though, we get a flashback. Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, they're feuding, man. They got issues. Cost Benoit a match against Eddie Guerrero. There's some heat here. Save it for the pay-per-view, boys, because Chris Benoit going to face Alex Wright next. Joseph, Chris Benoit, it's a little French for you, versus Alex Wright, 8 minutes, 20 seconds. Is this where we're doing it, or are we doing that later?
Yeah, I think this is where we have to do it.
Ooh, I thought we were going to say that for Hog Wild, but I guess that's right. We gotta talk about it on a regular one too. Ooh.
Well, also this really, the Hog Wild one doesn't play into it too much. So this one actually does. The
content warning, buckle up, everybody. We're going to talk about the Chris Benoit thing now, because we said we would at an appropriate time, and it's happening.
Let's start with some positives. We see Alex Wright, and you know what that means? It means Ronnie Schmidt must be very happy right now. I have no idea if he's actually a Alex Wright fan, but
Gotta be. Homegrown talent, Germany, man. we love us some Alex Wright, and we love us some Ronnie Schmidt. So there you go.
Jimmy Hart comes out during this match and tells Woman that she is driving Kevin Sullivan crazy. And then Dean Malenko comes to collect her, and Benoit launches onto him. Benoit wins via DQ as the two men continue to fight into commercial break. Unfortunately, like we said, this is kind of the right time to talk about this. I'll try to be as factual as I can. And then I think the goal is that we're just never going to talk about this situation again, and we're just going to leave it.
Yeah, you got a prepared statement, man. You worked on this, right?
It was not fun.
This is our prepared statement on this issue.
This is bad. End of statement. I'm sorry. So at this time in 1996, Woman is the real life wife of Kevin Sullivan. Her name is Nancy. According to many reports, primarily from her sister, Sandra Toffaloni, I believe her name is, Kevin Sullivan and Nancy Sullivan used to fight quite a bit. Kevin Sullivan would allegedly beat Nancy. You can find this info on the Dark Side of the Ring episodes about Chris Benoit. So there's no police reports or anything like that to back this up. This is just kind of hearsay. Around this time that we're in the podcast, Kevin Sullivan had the bright idea to have a feud with Chris Benoit and to use Woman, who is with the Four Horsemen, as kind of a catalyst for this feud. So what he did, he decided to book the two of them together primarily and have himself trying to kind of get back his wife. At his urging to keep kayfabe, the two would drive together and stay as inseparable as possible. This made them very close friends. Sullivan's alleged temper and beatings of Nancy pushed her directly into Chris Benoit's arms. The two fell in love. She divorced Kevin and married Chris. Chris had previously been married and had 2 children with his first wife. His children with that wife are David and Megan. With Nancy, Chris would have another child named Daniel in February of 2000. It's safe to say that the relationship between Chris and Kevin Sullivan would be contentious over the next few years, but beyond forcing these two together, Sullivan's role in this relationship is kind of now over by the time Daniel's born. They don't like each other, but there's no more to play with Sullivan in this story. Benoit would move to the WWF/WWE and begin an incredible run as one of the best workers in wrestling history. This would culminate at the Royal Rumble in 2004, where he would become the second man ever to win from the number 1 spot. He would then go to WrestleMania 20 and win the World Heavyweight Championship in arguably the best triple threat match ever against Triple H and Shawn Michaels. The image of him and longtime friend Eddie Guerrero hugging each other as WWE's 2 top guys is kind of burned in the minds of every wrestling fan who watched at the time. Over the next couple years, Benoit would lower on the card, often being used to propel new young talents in a higher role. Not because of anything he did, he was just getting older. They're, starting to move on. Unfortunately, Eddie Guerrero died in 2005. This moment would have a major impact on Benoit's mental health. In a 2014 Talk is Jericho podcast episode, Chavo Guerrero mentioned that he and Chris started writing together and would often tell each other at the end of the day that they loved each other. And before they kind of went to their own separate hotel rooms, they would call each other, things like that. They were very, very close, kind of bonding over the death of someone that was very close to them. As time went on from 2005 to 2007, Benoit would often have changes in his demeanor. Former wrestler Mordecai, I believe was also known as Kevin Thorne in ECW, I think that's the same wrestler, would mention that he noticed Chris had begun forgetting spots in the ring. This has been kind of recounted by other individuals as well. Eventually, in the days leading up to Monday, June 25th, 2007, Benoit would send odd texts or phone calls to people he was close to. Again, in that same 2014 podcast, Chavo Guerrero discussed these. He finally no-showed that Monday's Raw. At around 4 p.m. that day, WWE asked Fayetteville, Georgia police for a wellness check on Chris, as they had not heard from him in over 24 hours. The following I pulled from Wikipedia, simply because I wanted to read and talk about this as little as possible, and they had all the information that we needed there. On Friday, June 22nd, 2007, Chris Benoit killed his wife, Nancy, in the bonus room of their house in Fayetteville, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta. According to the police report, Nancy's limbs were bound prior to her death, with her arms being restrained with coaxial cables and her feet being duct taped together. A balled-up combination of a tube sock and tape was also found in the kitchen trash and appeared to be soaked in dried blood, which led police to believe that it was being used as a makeshift gag prior to Nancy's death. Her body was found wrapped in a blanket alongside a Bible. Injuries indicated that Benoit had pressed a knee into her back while pulling on a cord around her neck, causing strangulation. Officials said there were no signs of an immediate struggle. On June 23rd, the following day, Daniel was suffocated and killed in his bedroom. Another Bible was left by his body. He had internal injuries to the throat area showing no bruises. Daniel's exact time of death is unknown. The reports determined Daniel was sedated with Xanax and likely unconscious when he was killed. His body had also just started to show signs of decomposition, but was not as far along as his mother's. At about 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, June 23rd, this is Eastern Time, Chavo Guerrero received a voicemail message from Benoit's phone stating that both Nancy and Daniel had food poisoning and he would be late for that night's house show in Beaumont, Texas. Guerrero called Benoit back and found that Benoit sounded tired and groggy as he confirmed everything that he had said in his voice message. Guerrero, who grew concerned about Benoit's tone and demeanor, called him back 12 minutes later. Benoit did not answer, and Guerrero left a voicemail message asking Benoit to call him back. At 3:44, Benoit called Guerrero back, stating that he had not answered the call because he was on the phone with Delta Airlines, changing his flight. He stated that he had a stressful day due to Nancy and Daniel's purported food poisoning. Guerrero then replied with, "All right, man, if you need to talk, I'm here for you." Benoit ended the conversation saying, "Chavo, I love you." During that same previously talked about podcast, Guerrero said Benoit sounded off when he talked to him, especially when he said, "I love you," with emphasis. Another coworker who was not named, who often traveled with Benoit, called him from outside the Houston airport. Benoit answered and told the coworker that Nancy was vomiting blood and Daniel was also vomiting. Benoit failed to show up for the house show in Beaumont and left a voicemail on Guerrero's cell phone that he would be on a flight that would arrive in Houston at 8 a.m. the next day. During this time, Benoit also called and left a voicemail for an unknown friend. On Sunday, June 24th, 2007, 5 text messages were sent to coworkers between 3:51 a.m. and 3:58 a.m. using both Chris and Nancy's cell phones. 4 of them were Benoit's home address. The 5th said that the family's dogs were in the enclosed pool area and that the garage side door had been left open. Guerrero and the WWE referee Scott Armstrong were 2 of the recipients of these text messages. Guerrero was woken up by the text and went back to sleep, reasoning that he would ask Benoit about the text when he picked him up at the airport in a few hours. Benoit then failed to show up at the airport. Late that morning, Benoit called WWE's talent relations office stating that his son was vomiting and that he and Nancy were at the hospital with him. He also stated that he would be taking a later flight into Houston, where he was scheduled to face CM Punk for the vacant ECW World Heavyweight Championship at Vengeance Night of Champions pay-per-view, and Benoit failed to appear for that event. Later that Sunday, according to District Attorney Ballard and the county sheriff, Benoit committed suicide by hanging. He removed the bar from a lat pull-down machine in his exercise room and fashioned the end of the cord from the machine into a noose. Then he released the weights, causing his strangulation. Ballard said Benoit was found hanging from the pulley cable. Later tests conducted on Benoit's brain by Julian, I believe his last name is Bales, the head of neurosurgery at West Virginia University, showed Benoit's brain was so severely damaged it had resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Other tests conducted on Benoit's brain tissue revealed severe chronic trauma. I can never remember how to pronounce his name. Or encephalopathy, I think it is, which is CTE. That's the easy way to say it. And damage to all 4 lobes of the brain and brain stem. Bales and his colleagues concluded that repeated concussions can lead to dementia, which can contribute to severe behavioral problems. Benoit's father said that brain damage may have been the leading cause of the murder-suicide. Whenever we talk about Chris Benoit, there's kind of a massive elephant in the room every time we've done it in the podcast. Scott and I feel it. We know. I'm sure if you've listened to it, you kind of know too. In case you didn't know, I'm really sorry that you had to find out this way. It's horrible. I can tell you that when I was 15 and all this happened, I was a huge Chris Benoit fan and was completely crushed. That's just my own personal kind of bias in the situation. It's difficult for me to completely hate the man due to my own childhood memories and also my understanding of CTE. So I did want to talk about that a little bit just to give you a full picture. The Boston University CTE Center ran a study that found 345 of 376 deceased former NFL players were found to have had CTE. Though CTE does not directly cause death, it does cause massive behavioral changes, including but not limited to aggression, impulsivity, dementia, depression, and suicidality, I think it's what's called. Of those 345 players mentioned earlier, I found 11 that made it into their 70s. An additional 10 who lived into their 60s. Those numbers are not exact. That's just who I found off that list. I didn't go through the entire thing. I just kind of stopped after a while because it was depressing. In the same study, it was found that 40% of athletes who died before 30 had CTE. Notable names who committed murder while having CTE are Aaron Hernandez, Philip Adams, as well as O.J. Simpson, who was never formally convicted. So that one's more of an alleged. Notable names who committed committed suicide while having CTE, rather, include the aforementioned Hernandez and Adams, as well as George Atkinson and his twin brother Josh, Jovan Belcher, Dorian Boose, Greg Clark, Shane Dranette, Jason Hairston, Ray Easterling, Dave Dewerson, Terry Long, Paul Oliver, Adrian Robertson, Andre Waters, and Junior Seau. Seau was the most notable of these players. specifically because he had an amazing career, but also on top of that, he was really well known as a loving, caring, kind of life of the party kind of guy. It was a huge shock to the NFL when that happened, when he committed suicide. The previous information is not being used to sway you in one direction or another. I just wanted to give you more of a complete picture of the story of the tragic events of 2007. If you hate Chris Benoit, you're completely justified in doing so. Neither of us are going to try to change your opinion on that. After today, we hopefully will never address this again. I can tell you I personally will never speak down on Chris Benoit for one simple reason. Benoit is survived by his two children from his first marriage, David and Megan. Speaking down on him would do nothing but harm them. And not that they listen to this podcast anyways, but that's just really not fair. David has spoken about Chris with reverence over the last so many years, as Chris has been all but deleted from WWE history. David even went as far as to refer to Chris as his hero still. Megan has not been super open about her father. The most I can find is that she once posted a throwback photo of her and her dad on her Instagram with heart emojis, as well as an alleged Megan Benoit on a grieving site conducting a long, heartfelt post to her father. As I cannot confirm that this is actually her, I've chosen not to read that post here. That's kind of it as far as I have. Scott, do you have anything you wanted to add to this?
uh, not really. All that kind of got me a little emotional. It's just tragic all around, and what he did is inexcusable. We try to separate on this podcast, the real life from the in-ring. And in-ring, I think you and I both have reverence for Chris Benoit, one of the greatest of all time in the ring. Knowing what he did obviously makes it really tough to watch a lot of his matches, especially the diving headbutts and the chair shots to the head. I mean, he was one of the guys that was taking chair shots to the head long after it was deemed appropriate. He was still doing it when everyone else is kind of like, we shouldn't do that anymore. So yeah, so I don't know. I think maybe sometimes when people are listening to this and you and I are kind of always about like, oh gosh, we really like the pile driver, but it's just, you shouldn't do it because it's bad. And maybe people think like, oh, don't be a wuss. It's for these kind of reasons that we're concerned about those sorts of things, because we know what can happen. And yeah, and I mean, his brain just had incredible trauma. And I don't, knowing the guy and hearing all the stories about him, I think it's pretty clear that played a role in what happened, because he didn't seem like that kind of guy. And it makes a lot of sense. Alzheimer, you mentioned it's like an 80-year-old Alzheimer patient's brain. And, they're known to have violent mood swings. And so it's really tragic all around. Like you said, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I mean, we'll probably make reference to it here and there when he does a falling headbutt or takes a chair shot to the head. We may allude to it just because, I think I've mentioned on the podcast previously, I sent you a tweet recently from a guy who said, every time I watch a Chris Benoit match and I see him take a shot to the head, I'm like, is that the one? And I can't not see that when I see it. So I can't not think that when I see it. And yeah, it's just, like I said, we don't really want to talk about it. It's relevant obviously to the man, but not necessarily his in-ring abilities. And we're focused kind of on the in-ring action and the Monday Night Wars as you saw them on television every week. Obviously, the longer we do this, at some point, it's after the Monday Night Wars, but we've talked about maybe keep going. If people like this and we don't get completely burned out, we might transition into doing the brand wars, SmackDown and Raw and all that, and then we'll certainly have to talk about it again because it occurs, and it bleeds into the in-ring content. But yeah, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling and I'm kind of emotional right now, so I think I'm gonna stop, and we'll move on because it was terrible. Let me go back to my notes then. On that note, we forgot to mention during the Medusa Hosaka match that a limo's pulled up, and so I think we should probably go back to that. There is a limo idling. We don't know, but we go back to it after this match. They go to it again to mention that, hey, there's a limo. Who's in the limo? We don't know. So I think that's important to note because something might happen. Who knows? What I do know, though, is as a palate cleanser for all of this, we get a Macho Man Randy Savage Steven Regal match. And I mean, what could go wrong here, Joseph? 6 minutes, 18 seconds. Tell me about it, because I'm going to go get a stiff drink or something while you do.
Savage is in all black and white, an awesome outfit, but an odd choice for this stage of WCW. Regal shines way better in solo action. They've been having him tag a lot lately, and I've just been not a fan of that. Sting and Luger come down to the ring and take seats in the front row. Mach hits the elbow to win a fun matchup. Mach, Sting, and Luger head to the limousine to see who's in there. They find a bouquet of white roses that says condolences on the death of WCW. Mean Gene announces that Mach cut a deal to be the #1 contender for the winner of the WCW World Heavyweight Championship match at Hog Wild. In return, he is barred from Hog Wild. To that end, Mach said this: "I cut a deal because I had to. Back against the wall, Hollywood Hulk Hogan right there in Sturgis with all your biker friends, yeah. I believe the Giant's gonna get a bigger piece than you could think. And if he saves just a little bit, I'll finish the job, I will. You know I will. Dig it!" Sting then shows Mean Gene the bouquet. "All right, here it is. Bottom line, I'm not even in a state of shock. We're not even shaking! Because this is their style. Never face up. Always cheap shots. They don't want any part of my friend Sting and my friend Luger. The Outsiders is for you." Sting then says he sees a long and healthy life at WCW. Unfortunately, he's wrong about that. And then Mach grabs the bouquet and kicks a field goal with it. And that ends our segment. It's a very fun segment. It's a long segment. You mentioned the match is 6 minutes, but this post-match stuff lasts quite a bit because they got to go all the way to the limousine. They got to come back. They got to cut promos. And that's probably about 10 or 15 minutes. It's a really fun segment, though, all things considered. It got to be for me. Hitting that Pepsi hard, huh?
No, I'm not kidding. I got Coors. So got some Coors in the fridge, so I busted one out for this one, man. Need to calm the nerves a little bit. Anyways, yeah, so the limo thing, great. I came back to, I could hear it. I had the headphones down. I came back to you doing your Macho Man, which was a welcome return for me. And that made things feel a little bit better. I guess we do a recap of, after that we do a recap of Saturday night. There was a Ric Flair Chavo Guerrero match. Hi, Chavo. I'm gonna retcon it, man. I think it's better, so I'm just gonna do it. I'm rebooking it, and it's I Chavo, not O Chavo, because I think it's better. Anyways, Ric Flair would not release the figure 4, so Eddie comes out, because I mean,
You jumped
Chavo's
ahead. You jumped ahead.
Did I?
Yeah.
No. This is
Oh, no. You know what? I'm the blooper this week.
Yeah, because they're recapping because they're getting us excited for
You're
Hog
right.
Wild.
You're right. I'm the
Yeah.
blooper this week.
Yeah, it's a little heat. No, man, that's fine. That's fine. You're just getting excited. You're so excited for Hog Wild, and you don't want us to give any of it away for free.
It has nothing to do with being rattled from having to read all that shit earlier.
Yeah, that was rough, man. Like, I've read it before. I knew all of this. I've read the Wikipedia article, so I've read exactly what you read. But just having to sit here and listen to it, it was like, fuck. Just how can you do that to your wife and kids? Anyways, let's move on because I don't want to talk about it anymore. Yeah, so Saturday night, we get a recap from Saturday night. As I mentioned, Ric Flair puts Chavo in a figure 4, does not let go. Eddie comes out, confronts Rick. There's a fight. We get some chops. Ric Flair has some of the best chops in the game, and Eddie has some of the best chops in the game, and they're chopping. Ooh, I love it. And but this is just to get us hyped. This is to get us hyped for Hog Wild because they got a match for the U.S. title. We're actually doing something with the U.S. title again, so that's exciting. And speaking of the U.S. title, we got a U.S. title match up next. Ric Flair versus the Booty Man. That dude's still around? 3 minutes. Tell me about it, Joseph.
I actually love this, but it has nothing to do with the Booty Man.
Surprising.
Arn, Mang, and Barbarian are out there to protect the ring with chairs in case of an NWO attack. They were not initially there. They came out for this match, specifically Arn. Mongo and Benoit are by the entrance, same thing. They weren't there originally, but for this match they are. Four horsemen stick together, all that. Bobby Heenan comes to the broadcast table and explains himself last week, because obviously we remember he left. He says he made it here because there's more security, but doesn't know where Bischoff is. Ooh, interesting. The Horsemen beat the hell out of Booty Man because in real life he was best friends with Hogan. And so they're again blurring the lines of reality. And so they beat the hell out of him. Mean Gene comes to interview them, and Gene tells them to leave him alone because it's actually getting like pretty excessive. Arn then comes in, and Arn says, and I do not have an Arn impression, but I will read the promo because it was very, very good. Arn says, intense pain is a wonderful thing, Gene Okerlund. Your life flashes before your eyes. Things are the most important to you become crystal clear. You start to begin to learn the meaning of life. Last week when they stuffed me in that ambulance and I looked across and I saw Flair, Sting, Woman, Bagwell, and myself, I realized that we were people brought together, not by philosophy, but by necessity. And I started to think, New World Order, New World Order, where have I heard that? And I remembered in the good book, it says when the New World Order is put into place, it signals the beginning of the end of time. Well, WCW is our world. It's where we live and breathe. And if you want to destroy it, Hogan and the Outsiders, you've already made a mistake that jumps off the page. If you're going to take a baseball bat to the Horsemen, finish the job. Because there's one rule of gang fighting. See, we're the original gang, and we are the most vicious in all of professional wrestling history. They send one of yours to the hospital, you send one of theirs to the morgue. Great, great line. It's from the Untouchables. Arn kills it in this promo. In order to kind of work out his New World signals the end of times line, you kind of have to heavily bend the words in the Bible. The closest one I could think of was Matthew chapter 24, verse 6 through 7, which is, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet, for nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. You kind of have to imply that the New World Order would be the warring nations in this case. Beyond this, there's no actual specific mention of the New World Order in the Bible. Arn's just kind of utilizing it. And it does work for the promo. It works really well, but that never actually takes place. Even in Revelations, which is heavily about the end of times, there's nothing in there for it.
Look at this guy. Look at the research you do. You even went to the good book itself.
I grew up in a very conservative home, so.
But I'm just saying, man, this is the kind of content you don't get anywhere else. My boy went and researched the Bible for you all for this promo. I love it.
There are also certainly story arc elements that follow the signs of the end of the times, like brother versus brother, or the betrayal of children to their parents, or false prophets who claim holiness but act differently. Come to think of it, Joel Osteen would fit perfectly in the NWO. Fucking got him. Anyways, regardless of these story arcs, both incidental.
And Joel Osteen comes out. Whoa!
Would you be surprised?
I'd buy a ticket, bro. I'd buy a ticket.
Regardless of these story arcs, that are both incidental and also common tropes in film and stage for hundreds of years, by the same token of everything we've kind of listed, all of Shakespeare's work would signal the end of times. So it's just kind of, it is what it is. That being said, I got to say, Arn is clearly the promo of the week. I mean, he says it with such, we've talked about kind of matter of factness with Arn, right? And he's just so good in it. Benoit does say he does have a little part in this promo. He says he was not distraught last week, but filled with fury. Mongo says that he will swing metal at the Outsiders. Okay. And then Flair beats up Booty Man even more. It's a great segment. It got an A from me.
Yeah, the promo could have done without Benoit and Mongo. Just like Arn did it. Just let it be. But I did. Yeah. I agree that I like the part though where Flair beats Booty Man even more. Kind of like a message to Hogan, like, you've come at us, we're coming at you anytime, anywhere, you know? I liked that. That was good. I thought, is it surprising that Arn and Flair are some of the best in the game? Are we shocked by this? But they did it again. But after that, so They've said, hey, NWO, we're coming for you. And then we get an announcement paid for by the New World Order, Joseph. And they're coming at the Horsemen and all the others. You know, the big names in the WCW. These are just fantastic every time. What'd you think?
Yeah, so this is our second one of these. We had one last week and now this week. I gave this one an A plus. It's fantastic. Hollywood Hulk Hogan is full black beard and yellow handlebar, which is I think the first time that's happened, but hey, I could be wrong. He said, or Hall says that billionaire Ted and the Braves, they could use some sluggers, and he knows a couple. We get soft voice Hogan, who says he'll beat the Giant and that August 11th is actually his birthday. Hall and Nash then sing happy birthday as Hogan fake weeps. Hall says it's only business, it's not personal, but he can make it personal. Nash says they aren't talking about taking over anymore. They're talking about an extermination. And as this is going on, Sting and Lex go to the production truck and stop the tape, even though it was technically paid for and they have to legally play it. This segment is even better than I think last week's vignette because now it's not just the NWO and they're actually like WCW is fighting back on it, but also soft voice Hogan is so much better. It's so much better. And there's so much in this that just kind of underscores their lack of caring. And we're going to keep seeing that trend over the next few weeks. And I just really enjoy it. I also really enjoyed Sting and Luger being like, no, you're not playing the rest of this. It's done. You're not playing any more of it. And I really enjoyed that too. The whole thing got an A plus.
Think about how much this cost Turner Broadcasting. They had to refund that money, though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think corporate's going to be too happy about that. After that, though, we got the Giant defending his WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Man, Joseph, this is risky because he's going against Hulk Hogan at Hog Wild. What if he lost the title? What would they do? Who is he wrestling? Oh, Sergeant Craig Pitbull Pittman. Never mind. That's not a problem. 2 minutes, 33 seconds. It ends in a choke slam.
I gave this a D. I did not like it. Like you said, Giant wins with a choke slam, and then he goes to choke slam Pittman again after the match, and Teddy Long pleads with him to stop. Giant choke slams Teddy Long instead. This motherfucker going to go one-on-one with The Undertaker. Mean Gene interviews Jimmy Hart and the Giant. Jimmy says he was the only man who told Hogan the truth, and then the limo returns. Essentially, Jimmy's implying that everybody else surrounding Hogan was yes man. Not really untrue, but I also don't know if Jimmy wasn't one. I'm not saying he wasn't, I just don't know. Hart says at Hog Wild, Giant will be ready. Giant says he sent a message to the world. Then Hogan actually gets chance. He got booze a couple weeks ago, so that was kind of interesting. But beyond that, this segment's not very good. The post-match promo isn't even worth it. It just all got a D for me.
Yeah, it's just more of the Hulk, how could you kind of stuff, which I like it, but this one, not the best. I thought of the Hulk, how could you, I thought the Nasty Boys did it the best tonight. And that brings us to our main event, though, because we got the Nasty Boys in the main event. They're going up against Lex and Sting, or as we both agreed, their tag team name is Linger, or Ling. We both agreed on that.
It got longer.
Yeah. Whatever, man. 7 minutes, 5 seconds. Tell me, give me the blow by blow.
I gave this a B. It's a simple but decent length match. All men do well, and Sting wins with a Scorpion Deathlock. Mean Gene goes to interview Sting and Luger, and two little fans for some reason are in the ring with them, posing with Sting and Luger. Don't really remember why that happened, but it happened. Gene asks them about their match with the Outsiders at Hog Wild. Sting says it won't be pretty, it won't be pretty for sure. He asks if the Outsiders will be in the limo this time, and then decides to go check it out. Sting opens the door, and someone pulls it shut and drops a Turner briefcase. It has propaganda from the NWO in it that reads, "He was right. There are 4 guys. Or are there 5? See you at Sturgis." And that's how the show closes. I gave the segment a B. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
What's in the box? But we know there's a 4th guy, and maybe a 5th guy, and maybe a 6th guy. and maybe a seventh guy,
Yeah.
and maybe an eighth guy, because we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I was when we were doing pre-research, and we got to cut this because we're already at an hour, and we haven't even talked about Raw yet. But I just real quick want to talk about how I didn't realize how quickly they start making mistakes with the NWO, in my opinion, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about all of those because like you just think this is just so hot, and it's like no, I shouldn't have done that. No, I shouldn't have done that. It's really kind of downhill after Sturgis, I kind of think, but we'll talk about it. But before that, we got to run through Raw in 4 minutes. Key Arena, August 5th, 1996. It's recorded. Let's talk about it. We got Jerry the King, Aldo Montoya. Okay. There's a couple pile drivers in it, though, which I love, but don't do it, as we've discussed. Joseph, you want to talk about this?
Not really, but we have to. It gets an F. It's really bad. Jerry comes out and berates Jake the Snake, and it's so bad that Vin Man actually just kind of talks over him while he's on the mic. Jerry says to Aldo Montoya that he has Jake the Snake's tag partner with him, and it's a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey. He also says that Jake the Snake thinks that Beethoven's Fifth is a drink. That was a bad joke. It's not even mean. It's just not funny. Jerry wins the pile driver. Then he pours Jim Beam all over Aldo Montoya and mimics being drunk like he's Jake the Snake. It gets an F. I fucking hated it.
Next, we got the Body Donnas and the New Rockers, and Hillbilly Jim's on commentary. Whatever, Joseph. What'd you think about it?
Sonny and Farouk have a picture-in-picture promo. Sonny does well with Farouk because it's not really about her. That being said, she can't really save this, and Ron Simmons can't really make this work. Farouk ultimately says he's the tiger, the real king of the jungle, unlike the lion. It doesn't have anyone do its work for it, and it's a man-eater, just like he is. Okay? Hillbilly Jim, like he says on commentary, but doesn't really add much. During this match, Gorilla Monsoon reinstates Clarence Mason's mystery client, but he'll be watching him very closely. We'll see him next week, so we'll talk about it then. Smoking Guns interfere. Yeah. Smoking Guns interfere and cause the DQ that allows the Body Donnas to win, and the Godwins come to run them off. This is all setting up for a 4-man tag team title elimination match at SummerSlam. It was bad. It got a D. Didn't like it.
Next interview. Man, maybe we should just do this. We're rolling, man. Next, we got an interview with Shawn Michaels. He says he's going to beat Vader. Says he's going to beat Shawn. Hope Shawn's returns. He describes Shawn in the WWF like PB&J. It's beautiful. Not a bad interview. Joseph, you got thoughts?
It's not bad. It's a sit-down interview, which I really don't like. Not necessarily that I don't like it. I don't mind it. It's really good when done well. I don't like it in this. This should be a really intense rivalry, but instead this kind of slows down the pace of not only the rivalry, but also of Raw, which is already really slow and just kind of prodding along, which really hurts that. Just hand Shawn a mic and let him go out to the ring and say whatever he wants, but they haven't figured that out yet. Instead, he's good, but it's just kind of playing on the fence like I could win or I could lose. It's just kind of Shawn's whole run has been so plain because he doesn't get to go out there and screw around and make the run really his. It's not bad, but it got a C for me.
Yeah, he also mentions this 11-man battle royale that we've got up next. He's not worried about it. He says he's the only one that deserves to be the champion. And that leads us into the 11-man battle royale, which is 16 minutes and 3 seconds, and it takes up the rest of the night. Joseph, tell me about the 11-man battle royale.
Mankind and The Undertaker in this match, but they fight to the back. The final four is Ahmed Johnson, Goldust, Psycho Sid, and Steve Austin. Crowd noise is heavily piped in because they aren't fucking moving. Taker and Mankind keep fighting everywhere, even back to the ring and then back to the back. Owen Hart and Bulldog help Austin eliminate Sid, who chases the former two. Austin and Goldust team up on Ahmed Johnson, but Goldust betrays Austin. Goldust and Ahmed eliminate Austin, and then Ahmed Johnson eliminates Goldust by creatively hanging onto the ropes with his legs upside down. The actual ending is pretty creative. I really do enjoy that. This isn't horrible, but Battle Royals are kind of better used to push a new talent to the next level, like the Royal Rumble, or when they're used to decide a vacant title or a number one contender. They're not good when used to push an established talent. Ahmed Johnson was already the champion, so why do this? Vin Man interviews Ahmed Johnson, who says if he has to face HBK or Vader, depending on who wins, Ahmed will be sad if he faces HBK because he's like a brother to him. But if he faces Vader, it'll be a party. And then Farouk attacks him. And that's how we close out the show. I gave the segment entirely a C because it was like, okay, it's not bad, but it just, again, wasn't great. But it's just really a boring, boring show.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Farouk attacks. That's to get us hyped for a match that will never happen because Ahmed Johnson has to have a kidney removed or something. I think it's a kidney, right? It's something pretty serious, which they then blame on Farouk, which I don't think is real. I think he just really had a kidney problem. But that ends the night. Next week, Sean and Owen are going to go at it. Farouk's going to debut. He's going to have his first actual match against Skip. Good luck, Skip. You're going to lose. And then we get this ex-con that Clarence Mason's been talking about. Oh, boy. Who won, Joseph? WCW.
Yeah, WCW.
Well,
they won.
That's it. See y'all next week. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.